My dear friends, today the church celebrates what we call Good Shepherd Sunday. In the context of the present crisis that we are going through, I must say that I have been learning very much about good shepherding from many doctors and nurses who are in the front lines in the global battle against the COVID pandemic. For the past few months now, since this global crisis began, many doctors and nurses have been candidly documenting and sharing what they have been learning about the new coronavirus. But among all of them, I think it is from those among them who have been infected and who have suffered the disease themselves and have either been cured or died or have died in the process that we can learn very much about today's lesson on good shepherding. Before I proceed, let me just note that I am aware that the analogy or the metaphor of shepherding has its own limits. In fact, I know some people who have very strong negative reactions to it. They see in it a kind of leadership that is patronizing. They think the analogy equates the constituents with the flock who do nothing than follow the shepherd. That is why we have the negative idea of the so-called the herd mentality. Well, I agree with this observation, but only partly. I think it is precisely in reaction to bad models of shepherding that Christianity came with a good shepherding idea with no one but Jesus himself as our model. In fact, already in the Old Testament, you can find many reactions to what we call the bad models of shepherding or bad shepherding. You know probably that Saul, who became king, like David, was a shepherd. Saul and David were both shepherds. But when they translated their shepherding into political leadership, Saul's example is rejected by God, while David's example is approved by God, even if he failed as a shepherd every now and then. There is actually one whole chapter in the book of the prophet Ezekiel, and I recommend that you read it one of these days. Ezekiel chapter 34. Please remember that, Ezekiel 34, which criticizes the kind of shepherding that is being done by the ones he calls the false shepherds or the bad shepherds of Israel. Meaning, the kind of shepherds who do not know their sheep and whose sheep do not know them. The kind of shepherds who run away from danger and who always put self-interest above the welfare of their flock. If we speak about good shepherding, before we think of Jesus as the good shepherd, please do not forget that the idea of good shepherd is not original to Christianity. It is already there in Judaism. Of course, I am referring to what you heard in the responsorial psalm today, one of the most famous psalms in the Bible, Psalm 23. Well, some people don't know it's Psalm 23, but please now remember that, 23, the Good Shepherd. But who is the shepherd there? It says, "The Lord is my shepherd. There is nothing I shall want." And who is speaking in the psalm? Well, the psalmist is speaking from the perspective of the flock or the sheep. meaning the Israelite people, in relation to their God, Yahweh. And then he says, only goodness and kindness will follow me all the days of my life. That's where you get the word good. Meaning, the good shepherd is God. After all, even in English, good and God sound so closely related to each other. Don't you think so? Do you remember that one occasion in the gospel when Jesus was approached by an expert of the law, and the man said to Jesus, "Good master," or "good teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life?" And then Jesus reacted to him and he said, "Why do you call me good? No one is good but God alone." That came from the mouth of Jesus. No one is good but God alone. Let us apply the word now to the shepherd. When is a shepherd a good one? Good shepherding, as far as Christianity is concerned, this is what Jesus illustrates in his way of shepherding. You see, the metaphor is very fluid because he is also the gate, as you heard in today's gospel. He will make sure that the sheep are safe from danger. He will not compromise their safety and well-being. The image of a shepherd who lies down right at the entrance of the cave where he keeps his flock at night almost literally conjures the English expression, "over my dead body." You won't touch my sheep over my dead body. Meaning, he is ready to face danger. He will not run away. Literally, he puts his life on the line while taking care of his flock. I hope you were attentive to our readings. Our second reading today adds an extremely important aspect of good shepherding. The idea that the shepherd must know firsthand what the weakest among his flock are going through. How? By sharing in their weakness and by sharing in their vulnerability. He does care for the flock, the whole flock. But in particular, he prioritizes the weakest among them, the little ones, the pregnant ones, the elderly ones, the sick, and even those who go astray. Remember Jesus saying, he's even ready to leave behind the 99 in search of the one lost sheep. Walang patapon sa kanya. No one is expendable or dispensable. On the other hand, you have the bad shepherd. The bad shepherd has no idea what the sheep are going through because he is very far from them. He would not lie down by the gate or by the entrance of the cave because he's afraid of the wolves. He will leave that to the hirelings who run away when danger comes. The bad shepherd, well, that's the one who treats the sheep like a nameless, faceless herd or flock. What does the bad shepherd say to the flock? He will say, "You better shape up or die. Too bad for the weaklings among you. You know, it's really just survival of the fittest. Survive if you can. I don't care. All you have to do is follow me. If you cannot follow me, drop dead. For all I care. You just say, as you just do as I say. Well, that's a very common template for shepherding in this society. Sometimes the Lord teaches us good shepherding the hard way. Paano yun? Well, by allowing us to suffer the fate of those who we look after. That's what we heard from the second reading, from the first letter of St. Peter. He says, when you suffer, even if you did not deserve it, treat it as a grace from God. Because for this you have been called. Because Christ too suffered for you, leaving you an example that you should follow in His footsteps. Ang tawag ko sa ganito, mentoring. We can only be mentoring in good shepherding by the Good Shepherd Himself. Let me share some thoughts. The thoughts of a nurse who has been in this kind of a situation. There was this nurse very recently. He happened to have access to my number, so he texted me a few days ago only. He was asking me, "Kumusta na po, Bishop?" And I said, "Okay naman. I'm okay so far. What about you and your family? I hope you are okay yourselves." Sumagot siya. He texted back after a few minutes, like he wanted to decide if he was ready to tell me or not. And when he texted back, this is what he said. "Bishop, I need to tell you, I tested positive for the coronavirus just a few days ago. For the past few weeks now, I have been doing the work of a frontliner nurse in our hospital. I was doing swabbing for testing every day for our symptomatic patients." Ang sabi niya, alam ko naman I knew somehow that I could get infected too in time. But I did not expect it to come this soon. And worse than I ever thought. Please po, Bishop, pray for me. I just did my job as a nurse, even if I was afraid myself. Maybe it was a strong sense of duty that gave me the courage to just keep doing what I had to do in order to help those who have been infected to be able to recover. But you know, Bishop, last night, I felt like I was caving in. I found myself crying to God and saying to Him in my prayer, "Lord, what did I do to deserve this? I set aside my own family, my own comfort, in order to serve the people who need me. And now this? Why, Lord? I don't understand. Do I really need to go through all of this myself?" And then he said to me, "Bishop, I must admit, I am starting to feel defeated by my emotions. It's like something is eating me up inside me. Please, Bishop, please pray that the Lord will guide me." I'm glad he said that. He didn't say, "Please guide me." He said, "Please pray that the Lord will guide me." I think he knows I'm not the good shepherd. Only God is the good shepherd. I can only pray that the good shepherd guide him. And I wanted to tell him, you're being called to become a good shepherd yourself. And then he said, "I had no symptoms when I tested positive a few days ago. But since this afternoon, I have started to feel a shortness of breath, and I am starting to worry. So I called my doctor. And he did not want me to be admitted in the hospital. Maybe because I am a nurse, they think I can take care of myself at home anyway. They gave me 2 kinds of medication for pneumonia and instructed me to do something about my shortness of breath by using a nebulizer. I am alone now. I'm under isolation, home alone. The other members of my family had to move out for their own protection. And only my mother is allowed to come to deliver my food at my doorstep every day. Later, he texted me and even sent me photos. He said, Bishop, my wife and my 1-year-old kid, they came to visit me. And they were standing several meters away, waving at me. And I felt my heart crushed because I wanted to embrace them. And said, please, Bishop, please, pray for me. I did not say very much. I just listened to him. Basically, I said to him, I hear you, and I'm here for you. Please keep me updated. Do not hesitate to text me or even to call me whenever you feel the need to. And if there are priests listening right now, please, would you just give away your cell phone number, especially to people who need you most right now, who will have no access to other people or to a priest. Please make yourself as accessible as possible. Alam nyo, many doctors and nurses are totally clueless about this horrible disease. That is the reason why they are asking us to stay home. Because they are overwhelmed and they find it difficult to cope. They do not even know how to treat it. The disease is totally new. It's not in the textbooks. There is no medicine for it. It defies anything that they know about the patient's cure. They are clueless. They're clueless until they get infected themselves. From the doctors and nurses who were the caregivers, suddenly they become the patients. From shepherds, suddenly they become the lambs. And they go through all the humiliation and helplessness, sometimes of having to be intubated by fellow doctors, and this time reacting with fear like ordinary patients, with helplessness. But here's the good news. When they get healed, their attitude changes radically. Why? Because they've been through it themselves. In the letter to the Hebrews, the image is not that of a shepherd, but a priest. And the writer says, we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses. Rather, a high priest who in every respect has gone through all the temptations that we've gone through, and yet without sin. I don't know if you know that the very first doctor who died of COVID-19 was a Chinese Catholic. His name was Dr. Li Wenliang. He was the doctor who treated the very first patients infected by the COVID-19 in Wuhan and called the attention of the Chinese government about it. You think they listened to him? No, they arrested him. They arrested him for allegedly spreading rumors about a mysterious pneumonia-like virus. Of course, eventually the Chinese government admitted that they were wrong with him, and released him. There is a poem supposedly written by Dr. Li Wenliang. It went viral in the social media as early as February. Let me end by quoting him. I'm not sure if he really wrote this. Apparently he said, "I really do not want to be a hero. I also have my parents to think of, and my children, and my pregnant wife, who is about to give birth, and many of my patients in the ward. Despite my loss and my confusion, I have to proceed anyway. When this battle is over, I will look up to the sky with tears like rain. I really do not aspire to become a hero. I am just a simple doctor," he said. "But I will not allow this unknown virus to continue hurting my peers and so many innocent people. While they are dying, they look at me with their eyes, with their hope of life." And perhaps when he knew that he was not going to recover, he wrote his farewell. He said, "Goodbye, my dear ones. Hopefully, after this disaster, you will remember someone once tried to let you know the truth as soon as possible. Hopefully, after the disaster, you will learn what it means to be righteous. No more good people should suffer from endless fear and endless, helpless sadness." I'm sorry, napahaba. My dear friends, it is from reluctant heroes like him, and like the nurse I told you about, who is following this Mass right at this very moment. Please pray for him and his fellow health workers. It is from people like them that we have very much to learn today about the meaning of good shepherding.